Briarwood, Tennessee, welcomed May with magnolia blossoms and the anticipation of wedding season. The sun gilded the rooftops as Derek Wilson stepped out of the Briarwood construction building, where he worked as a development manager. At 32, he was the embodiment of local success, a member of a respected family, educated in Knoxville, who had returned to build a future in his hometown. 6 days until the wedding, Derek thought as he checked his phone for messages. Melissa had sent a photo of her wedding bouquet, white lilies with sprigs of lavender. These flowers reminded him of their first meeting at a local coffee shop, where she was drinking a lavender latte and reading a psychology book. Melissa Carter had arrived in Briarwood 2 years ago, taking a job as an assistant at Dr. Howell's family clinic. Attractive, intelligent, and a graduate of the University of Tennessee, she quickly became part of the close-knit community. Especially for Derek, who first saw her at a charity event and asked her out on a date a week later. Derek's phone rang. The screen lit up with the name of his best friend and future best man, Jack Thornton. "Derek, are you sitting down?" Jack's voice sounded strangely tense. "What's wrong? Problems with the musicians?" "No, it's not that. Victor Reeves, he was just in the office. He was saying strange things about Melissa." Victor Reeves owned a chain of car washes and several commercial buildings in Briarwood and neighboring towns. About once a month, he would travel to Nashville on business, returning with new stories about life in the big city. "What kind of things?" Derek asked, feeling something tighten inside him. He said he knows Melissa, from Nashville. He said she worked as a stripper at the Velvet Moon Club. He said she was known there as Melody. Derek stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, ignoring Mrs. Coleman's greeting as she passed by. "That's nonsense," he finally said. "I thought so too. But Victor swears it's true. He says he was there several times and remembers her clearly. He even showed me a photo of the club on his phone." "Why did he tell you this?" "He said he didn't want you to find out after the wedding, like a friendly warning." Derek got to his car, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. His thoughts were confused. Melissa said that in Nashville she worked as a waitress in a cafe and moonlighted as a hotel administrator while finishing college. When Derek pulled up to Melissa's house, a small, neat cottage on Clover Street, he still didn't know what to say or how to say it. The wedding was in 6 days. The invitations had been sent out, the venue was booked, and the relatives were already on their way. Melissa met him at the door, smiling. Her dark hair was pulled back in a casual bun, and there was a flour mark on her cheek. She had probably been baking something for her parents' arrival. "Can we talk?" Derek asked as he walked into the living room. Something in his voice made her freeze. She slowly sank down onto the sofa. "What's wrong?" Derek looked at the woman he had loved for the past 2 years. "Victor Reeves told Jack today that he saw you in Nashville, in a strip club, that you were working there." Her face changed, as if a mask had cracked and something else was visible through it. She didn't answer right away, and that silence told Derek more than any words could. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. Melissa nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. "I was going to tell you, but I was afraid." 2 years, Melissa. 2 years, and you never found the moment to mention that you were dancing naked for money? "It wasn't like that. Not exactly." She hugged her shoulders as if she had suddenly become cold. "I needed money for college. My family couldn't help. 3 nights a week, for almost 2 years. It was just a job." "Just a job?" Derek felt a wave of anger rise inside him, mixed with something else, perhaps betrayal. "You lied to me. You lied to everyone in this town." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell the whole truth." Melissa looked up at him. "Would you have dated me if you had known?" The question hung in the air. Derek didn't know the answer. "Does Rachel know?" he asked, thinking of Melissa's best friend, who was supposed to be the maid of honor. Melissa nodded. "She's the only one here who knows. We met in college, and she never judged me." Derek stood up and walked to the window. In the neighboring yard, Mrs. Green was hanging laundry, and her grandchildren were chasing each other with water guns. It was a typical spring day in Briarwood. "Oh God," he said suddenly. "If Victor has already told Jack, soon the whole town will know." "I understand if you want to call off the wedding," Melissa said quietly. Derek turned to her. Melissa's face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked the same as he knew her, the same woman he had fallen in love with, the woman he dreamed of spending his life with. But now, he saw someone else in her, a stranger with a secret part of her life that she had never shared with him. "I need time to think," Derek said, and left the house. That evening, Derek sat on the porch of his parents' house, where he had grown up and where his widowed father now lived. He and Jack were silently sipping beer when Victor Reeves's black Cadillac pulled up to the driveway. "I didn't say I invited him," Jack tensed. "I didn't." Victor climbed the steps, dressed as impeccably as ever in light-colored pants and a blue shirt with rolled-up sleeves, a massive watch on his wrist. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just wanted to see how you were doing, Derek." "Why did you do that, Victor?" Derek asked bluntly. Reeves spread his arms. "Consider it a friendly gesture. Would you have preferred to find out after the wedding? Or in 5 years when you have children? It's none of your business. Briarwood is a small town. Everything is shared here." Victor paused. "You know, she was good. I mean, really good. Men lined up for private dances with Melody." Jack stood up. "I think it's time for you to go, Victor." Of course. I just thought you should know the whole truth." When the Cadillac disappeared around the bend, Jack turned to his friend. "What now?" Derek was silent for a long time, staring at the sunset sky above the rooftops of Briarwood. "I love her, Jack, no matter what. But I don't know if I can trust her after this. And how can I look everyone in the eye when they whisper behind our backs?" Jack sat back down in his chair. "You know, my mom always said, it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going." Derek rubbed his face with his hands. "I need to talk to her. Really talk to her." Rachel Sullivan was sitting in Melissa's kitchen when Derek arrived. The two women fell silent when he entered. "I think I'll go," Rachel said, getting up. "No, stay," Derek stopped her. "I just want to understand everything." For the next 2 hours, Melissa told her story. How, at 19, she was left without family support because of a conflict with her stepfather. How she tried to balance her studies and her job as a waitress, but still didn't have enough money. How one of her classmates told her about a club where she could earn as much in one night as she did in a week at the cafe. "I told myself it was temporary, just until I finished college. Then I started my clinical training, and I was able to leave the club. And then I met you." Derek listened without interrupting. He felt the storm inside him gradually subside, giving way to understanding. "The wedding is in 6 days," he finally said. "If we're going to go through this together, we need to be honest with each other, completely honest. No more secrets." Melissa nodded, her eyes filling with hope. "I want you to know that I never cheated on you, and I never will." Rachel, who had been silent all this time, put her hand on her friend's shoulder. "She loves you, Derek, truly." Derek took a deep breath. "I know, and I love her." He took Melissa's hand. "We'll get through this, together." As he walked away, the thought that he had made the right decision spun around in his head. But a little worm of doubt remained. How would his parents react? What would his friends say? And why was Victor Reeves so eager to reveal this secret right now? Tuesday morning greeted Briarwood with pouring rain. Drops drummed on the roof of Derek's pickup truck as he sat parked in front of his parents' house. He had put off this conversation as long as he could, but the wedding was in 4 days, and rumors spread faster than a forest fire. William Wilson, Derek's father, sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a fresh newspaper. His sister Martha was making breakfast, having come from Memphis to help with the wedding preparations. "Good morning," Derek said, shaking the raindrops off his jacket. "Son, is everything okay? You look preoccupied." William put down the newspaper. Derek sat down across from his father, cupping the coffee cup Aunt Martha had placed in front of him. "I need to tell you something. About Melissa." 10 minutes later, a heavy silence hung over the kitchen. William Wilson stared at the wall behind his son, as if he saw something special there. Martha sat down next to him, nervously twisting a kitchen towel. "And you're still going to marry her?" his father finally asked. "Yes, Dad. I love her." William shook his head. "Derek, haven't you thought about the consequences? About your reputation? About future children? That whole thing is in the past." "Nothing stays in the past in a small town," Martha sighed. "Honey, are you sure she's the right girl to start a family with?" Derek felt a wave of irritation rising inside him again. Just a day ago, they had been admiring Melissa. Now, in their eyes, she had become someone else, not the good-natured, intelligent girl he had introduced to them 2 years ago. "She's still the same Melissa," he said firmly, "just with a past you didn't know about." "That you didn't know about either," William emphasized. "Son, a girl who starts a relationship with deception. She didn't deceive me. She just didn't tell me everything." Martha put her hand on Derek's shoulder. "We just want you to be happy." "I'll be happy with her. And I hope my family will support me." William was silent for a long time, then slowly nodded. "We'll be at the wedding, but give us time to get used to this information." Jack Thornton was sorting through papers in his small insurance agent's office, but his thoughts were far away. He could see Melissa's face, her eyes filled with tears when they bumped into each other at the supermarket last night. "Derek told me you knew," she had said quietly. "Yes, I'm sorry it turned out this way. He said you're still friends, despite everything. Thank you for supporting him." There was nothing special about her gratitude, but Jack felt something tighten in his chest. Melissa had no idea that over the past 2 years he had learned to hide his feelings for her so deeply that even Derek hadn't noticed. The phone on the table rang, pulling Jack out of his thoughts. "Jack, it's Derek. Can you come to Harlow's? We're having problems with the musicians." "Sure, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Harlow was the elderly owner of a local hotel with a banquet hall where the wedding reception was to be held. When Jack arrived, Derek was already there, talking intently with a gray-haired man wearing glasses. "They're refusing to play at your wedding," Harlow said. "They called an hour ago, said they had sudden family circumstances." "That's nonsense," Derek shook his head. "They've played at every other wedding in the county, and now suddenly, family circumstances 4 days before the ceremony?" "I can look for a replacement," Harlow offered, nervously wiping his glasses. "But all the good bands are usually booked months in advance." When the older man walked away to take a phone call, Jack turned to Derek. "Victor?" he asked quietly. "Who else? The musicians played at his birthday party last year." Jack put his hand on his friend's shoulder. "We'll find a solution. Maybe a DJ." "It's not about the musicians." Derek rubbed his face wearily. "This is just the beginning. Soon someone will cancel the cake, then the photographer will remember urgent business. Hey, don't get yourself worked up. Victor is just one person, with a lot of influence, and it seems a personal vendetta against my wedding." Jack thought for a moment. "Why is he so interested in all this? Have you had any conflicts with him before?" "No, but I've asked myself the same question." Derek frowned. "Maybe he has some kind of beef with Melissa?" Rachel Sullivan closed the door to the office at the veterinary clinic where she worked and checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Melissa. She called back immediately. "Ray, I don't know what to do." Melissa's voice trembled. "Mrs. Clayton just canceled my hair appointment. She said her back suddenly started hurting." "Do you want to know what I think?" "That someone called her and told her about my past," Melissa finished, "and that she doesn't want to deal with a former stripper. I'll be there in an hour. We'll figure something out. When Rachel arrived at her friend's house, boxes of decorations for the wedding reception were already laid out. Melissa sat on the floor among the ribbons and flowers, looking devastated. "Maybe we should cancel everything," she said without looking up. Rachel sat down next to her. "Don't let Victor win. It's not about Victor. It's about people's reactions. Derek doesn't deserve this." "And you think you do?" Rachel took her friend by the shoulders. "Mel, listen. What you did in Nashville doesn't define you. It was a job. A temporary job during a difficult time." Melissa shook her head. "I should have told Derek sooner. Much sooner." "What difference would that have made? He would have found out through Victor anyway. At least it would have been honest from the start." Melissa nervously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You know, I almost told him, several times, but I was always afraid he would turn away from me. And now? Right now, he says everything is fine, but I can see that it's not. Something has changed, Rachel. The way he looks at me." Rachel hugged her friend. "Give him time. It was a shock." "What if?" Melissa hesitated. "What if Victor tells him more? There are things I haven't even told you." Rachel pulled away, looking intently at her friend. "What do you mean?" "Victor was a special client. He came to the club regularly and always ordered private dances. Once he offered me a better job. I refused and asked not to serve him anymore." "And you think he's taking revenge now?" "I don't know, but I'm afraid this is just the beginning." That evening, Derek sat with Jack on the porch of his parents' house, both with cans of beer in their hands. The rain had stopped, leaving behind fresh spring air and a feeling of renewal. "I found a band," Jack said. "They usually play at a bar in Knoxville, but they agreed to come. They're charging a third more, though." "Thanks, buddy. I don't know what I'd do without you." Jack took a sip of beer, avoiding looking at his friend. "That's what best men are for, right?" "Did you talk to Melissa today? She seems distant." "No," Jack replied too quickly. "I mean, we ran into each other in town yesterday, but we only talked for a minute." Derek nodded, looking into the distance. "Jack, be honest. Would you marry her, knowing what we know now?" The question caught Jack off guard. He felt his heart beat faster. "I'm not sure. I guess it depends on how much I love the person." "And if you love her a lot?" "Then yes, I think so." Derek smiled, his first real smile in days. "I think so too. She did what she had to do to survive and get an education. I can't blame her for that." Jack nodded silently, feeling a strange mixture of relief for his friend and a deep-seated sadness for what would never be. "By the way, I found out something about Victor," he said, changing the subject. "He really did frequent that club, and not just as a customer." Derek turned to him. "What do you mean?" "I have a friend in Nashville. He said Victor invested money in that club. He was one of the investors." "What? Why didn't he say anything about that?" "Maybe because here he pretends to be a respected businessman and member of the church council?" Derek thought for a moment. "We need to talk to Melissa, find out what else she can tell us about Victor." Melissa opened the door for Derek, looking exhausted. They hadn't seen each other all day, for the first time since her secret had been revealed. "Can I come in?" he asked. She silently let him into the house and closed the door. Wedding decorations were still scattered around the living room. "I found out something about Victor," Derek began. "He was an investor in the club where you worked." Melissa didn't look surprised. "I know. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's part of the story I've been trying to forget." Derek sat down on the sofa. "Tell me everything. I want to understand what's going on." Melissa took a deep breath and sat down next to him, but not too close. Victor was a frequent customer. He came to the club almost every week when he was in Nashville. He always ordered private dances and always tipped generously. She paused. "He said he saw potential in me." "Potential for what?" "For work, at a higher level. He offered me a job as an escort. He promised big money, contacts with influential people." Derek felt anger rising inside him again. "And you refused." "Of course I refused. I danced to pay for my education, not for that." Melissa stood up and walked over to the window. "After I refused, he became more insistent. I complained to the manager, and Victor was asked to choose other dancers. He was furious. And now, 4 years later, he's trying to ruin your wedding?" "Maybe it's not about the wedding," Melissa said quietly. "Maybe he just doesn't want me here, in his town, among his friends and business partners. I'm a reminder of another side of his life." Derek walked over to her and took her hands. "This isn't his town, and you have just as much right to be here as he does." Melissa leaned against him, and they stood in silence for a long time, looking at the dark silhouettes of the houses in Briarwood. "I'm afraid, Derek." "Of what?" "That this is just the beginning, that it will get worse." Derek hugged her tighter. "We'll get through this. In 3 days we'll be husband and wife, and all of this will be in the past." Melissa nodded, but Derek saw a shadow of doubt in her eyes. The confidence with which they had planned their wedding just a week ago was gone. Something new had taken its place. Wariness, a sense of foreboding. "I love you," she said. "I love you too, and nothing will change that." When Derek left, Melissa sat in the dark living room for a long time. The phone on the coffee table vibrated. A message had arrived from an unknown number. "Run while you can, Melody, or everyone will find out the truth." Saturday was clear, with a light breeze ruffling the white ribbons at the entrance to St. James Church. It was the most popular day for weddings in Briarwood, and usually there was a joyful bustle here. But today, there was something else behind the guests' smiles. Derek stood in the small groom's room, looking in the mirror and adjusting his tie. The reflection showed a man he barely recognized, the same Derek Wilson, but with a new look in his eyes. Less naive, more wary. Jack entered with 2 glasses of whiskey. "The traditional dose of courage," he said, handing 1 glass to Derek. "Thanks. How's it going outside?" "Everyone's arriving. Your father is talking to the pastor. I saw Melissa's parents. They look a little confused." Derek nodded. "They just arrived yesterday. I don't know if they're aware of everything that's happened." Jack sat down on the edge of the table. "What about Victor?" "He wasn't invited, but he's friends with half the town. He could have come as a +1 with any of the guests." Footsteps and muffled voices could be heard outside the door. Derek tensed, expecting the door to open, but the footsteps receded down the hallway. "Are you sure about this?" Jack asked, looking at his friend. There was a note in his voice that Derek had never heard before. "The wedding? Of course. I love her." Jack looked away and took a sip of whiskey. "I mean this whole situation. Half the town is whispering. A lot of people think you're making a mistake. What do you think?" The question hung in the air. Jack put down his glass and walked over to the window, through which he could see the church courtyard with the arriving guests. "I think I want you to be happy," he finally replied. In the bride's room, Rachel was helping Melissa with the finishing touches. The white off-the-shoulder dress accentuated the bride's graceful figure, and the thin veil pinned to her high hairstyle added an airy touch to her look. "You look amazing," Rachel said, securing the last pin. Melissa looked at her reflection with anxiety. "I haven't slept all night." "That's normal. Pre-wedding jitters." "It's not just that." Melissa lowered her voice, even though there was no one else in the room. "I got another message." Rachel froze. "From the same number?" "Yes. This morning. Last chance to call off the wedding, or everyone will find out about that night." "What night?" Melissa turned away from the mirror, her hands trembling slightly. "Remember I said there were things I hadn't even told you?" The door suddenly opened, and Melissa's mother entered, a middle-aged woman with a tired face and a worried look. "Everything's ready, dear. The guests are here." The conversation was interrupted, leaving Rachel with an unpleasant feeling of incompleteness. Something important was left out, something that could change everything. The ceremony was like a dream. Melissa walked down the aisle arm in arm with her father, looking only at Derek. He looked at her with love, but behind that look was something else. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Jack stood nearby, tall and elegant in his suit, but his eyes betrayed an inner struggle. Victor Reeves was nowhere to be seen among the guests, which created a strange feeling of calm before the storm. The pastor's words sounded as if they were coming from far away. Melissa and Derek exchanged vows, and for a moment, it seemed that everything could be all right again. When they exchanged rings, tears glistened in Melissa's eyes, not only tears of joy, but also of relief. The first part of the day passed without incident. But then it was time for the wedding reception. The banquet hall at the Briarwood Hotel was decorated with white lilies and lavender. A new band, found by Jack at the last minute, played light jazz tunes. Guests gathered in groups, talking in hushed tones and glancing at the newlyweds. Rachel stood at the bar, watching the proceedings. William Wilson sat at the family table with a tense expression on his face. Melissa's parents looked lost among the residents of the small town where their daughter had lived for the past 2 years. Beautiful wedding, isn't it? Rachel turned and saw Victor Reeves with a glass of champagne. He was impeccably dressed in a gray suit with a blue tie. "I didn't think you were invited," she replied coldly. "Oh, formalities." Victor waved his hand. "I'm here with Harlow. We're golf partners." "What do you want with Melissa?" Victor raised an eyebrow, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Interesting question. Maybe I just believe in the truth, especially before such serious decisions as marriage. Or maybe you can't accept that she rejected you?" Victor's smile faltered. "She told you? I wonder what else she told you." Before Rachel could answer, Jack approached them. "Victor, what a surprise." "Jack, great job as best man. Although I must admit, you look a little tense. Maybe you should be in the groom's place." Jack froze, his face turning pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. The whole town can see the way you look at the new Mrs. Wilson. The whole town except Derek." The newlyweds' first dance was met with approving applause. Derek held Melissa tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. They moved slowly, whispering something to each other. For a moment, the world narrowed down to just the two of them, and it seemed that nothing else mattered. But when the music stopped, reality returned. Guests began to approach with congratulations, and among them was Victor Reeves. "A beautiful ceremony," he said, extending his hand to Derek. "And the bride looks stunning, as always." There was a double meaning in his words that did not escape Derek. He squeezed Melissa's hand tighter as she froze at the sight of Victor. "Thanks for coming," Derek replied dryly. "But if you don't mind, we have a lot of guests." Victor smiled, raising his glass. Of course. I just wanted to congratulate you. And maybe talk to Melissa later. Or should I say Melody? We have unfinished business." Derek took a step forward, but Melissa held him back. "Not here," she whispered. "Not now." Victor saluted them with his glass and walked away, leaving behind a heavy feeling. With each passing hour, the atmosphere at the reception changed. Alcohol flowed freely, and with it, tongues loosened. Conversations grew louder, glances more direct. Melissa was standing by the window when an elderly woman approached her, Mrs. Wheeler, the owner of a local flower shop. "You know, dear," she began, swaying slightly, "my son also travels to Nashville often. He says there's a lot of entertainment there." She paused. "I wonder if he's met you before." Melissa turned pale. Rachel, noticing the situation, immediately came over and led her friend away, leaving Mrs. Wheeler with an unfinished glass in her hand. In another corner of the room, Jack watched the scene unfold, his gaze darting from Derek to Melissa and back again. Victor approached him, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. "Tough day for your best friend, huh?" Jack didn't answer, but accepted the drink. "You know," Victor continued, lowering his voice, She's going to need someone when this is all over. Someone who will accept her with all her experience. What are you talking about? That Derek only knows part of the truth. And when he finds out everything... Victor didn't finish his sentence, but his gaze spoke louder than words. Jack put down his glass. What do you care about all this, Victor? Why are you so obsessed with destroying their happiness? Maybe I just don't like being lied to, or being rejected. The evening continued. The wedding cake was cut, toasts were made. Derek gave a speech about love and trust, but his gaze searched the crowd for Victor from time to time. When the dancing started, Melissa went to the ladies' room. Rachel followed her. Are you okay? Melissa stared at her reflection in the mirror. No, nothing is okay. He's here, and he won't stop. What night was he talking about? Melissa lowered her head. The last night I saw Victor at the club. He was drunk, aggressive. He tried to force me to leave with him. When I refused, he grabbed me. I defended myself. The security guards intervened, but what? I hit him, hard, with my heel in my hand. He has a scar. Melissa looked up. He filed a complaint, but then withdrew it. I thought it was over. Now I realize he was just waiting for the right moment to get his revenge. The door to the ladies' room opened, and one of the guests entered. The conversation was interrupted, but Rachel saw real fear in her friend's eyes. On the dance floor, Derek noticed that Melissa had been gone for a long time and went to look for her. In the hallway, he ran into Jack, who looked worried. Have you seen Melissa? No, but I just heard Victor. Jack hesitated. What? What did you hear? He was talking on the phone. He said something about she'll regret it, and it's time to teach her a lesson. Derek felt a chill run down his spine. We need to find her, right now. They split up. Derek headed for the ladies' room, Jack for the terrace exit. The guests continued to dance and drink, oblivious to the growing tension. Victor Reeves stood at the bar, watching the scene with a slight smile. He held a phone in his hand, his gaze following something or someone at the far end of the room. Rachel came out of the ladies' room alone. Her face was filled with concern. When she saw Derek, she quickly approached him. Melissa asked me to tell you she needs a few minutes. She'll meet you on the terrace. What's going on, Rachel? What did she tell you? Derek, there's something you need to know about Victor and Melissa. It's not just a story about working at the club. It's a story about... She was interrupted by a sudden noise from the terrace. A scream, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Derek and Rachel rushed over, pushing through the curious guests who had begun to gather at the exit. On the terrace, lit only by moonlight and fairy lights, a scene was unfolding that would change the lives of everyone present forever. Flashes, screams, noise. Derek Wilson's world shattered into pieces the moment he stepped onto the terrace of the Briarwood Hotel. Moonlight bathed the marble slabs in a silvery glow, mingling with the warm light of the garlands. In this bizarre light, he saw something that would change his life forever. Melissa lay on the cold floor, her white wedding dress billowing around her like a cloud. A broken champagne glass lay nearby, its shards glistening in the moonlight. A dark stain spread across the light fabric of the dress, glistening ominously. Melissa's neck was twisted unnaturally, her eyes wide open and unmoving. Jack stood over her, his hands shaking, his face frozen in a mask of shock. A few steps away, Victor Reeves leaned against the railing, holding his shoulder, his shirt torn. What happened? Derek's voice sounded as if it were coming from far away, belonging to someone else. Neither Jack nor Victor answered. Rachel squeezed past Derek and fell to her knees next to her friend. Her fingers searched for a pulse on Melissa's neck. The few seconds of waiting seemed like an eternity. She's dead, Rachel said in a choked voice. Derek's world seemed to narrow to a tunnel, at the end of which was only the lifeless body of his wife. He didn't remember how he had crossed the distance between them, how he had knelt down beside her, how his hands, trembling and powerless, had touched her cooling skin. Time lost all meaning. Guests began to gather around. Some were screaming, some were crying, some were demanding that an ambulance be called, although it was already clear that the medics would not be able to help. At one point, William Wilson, Derek's father, pulled his son away from the body, hugging him with a force Derek had not felt since childhood. "I don't understand," Derek repeated. "I don't understand how this could have happened." Jack stood as if paralyzed, his tuxedo stained. Rachel got up from her knees, her party dress ruined by blood and champagne stains. Victor Reeves continued to hold his shoulder, his face contorted in pain. "He killed her," Victor suddenly said, pointing at Jack. "I saw him hit her when she refused him." Jack seemed to snap out of his stupor. "What? That's not true. I never—" "I went out for a smoke," Victor continued, "and saw them arguing. He confessed that he loved her, always had. She rejected him, said she only loved you, Derek." Victor paused. "He pushed her. She fell and hit her head. When I tried to intervene, he attacked me." Jack took a step forward. "Liar! You threatened her. You stalked her with those messages." The guests murmured, shocked by the unfolding scene. Someone had already called the police, and sirens could be heard in the distance, a strange accompaniment to the wedding music still coming from the banquet hall. Rachel looked at Victor with undisguised hatred. "He's lying. Melissa was afraid of him, not Jack." "Where's the weapon?" one of the guests asked. All eyes turned to the floor around Melissa's body. Something glinted among the broken glass, a letter opener with a decorative handle, stained with blood. Knives like this had been part of the wedding decorations on the guest registration table. Melissa's mother rushed to her daughter with a cry, but was held back. Her father stood at a distance, his face blank, like a man who cannot comprehend what is happening. The sirens grew louder, and soon police cars filled the hotel parking lot. Detective Hank Donovan, a tall man with graying temples and a piercing gaze, appeared on the terrace accompanied by several officers. The next few hours merged into a chaotic blur of statements, tears, and shock. The guests were separated from each other, and the area was cordoned off. Melissa's body was covered and soon taken away. Derek watched it all with a sense of unreality, as if he were watching a movie from the sidelines. He, Jack, Victor, and Rachel were taken to separate rooms in the hotel for questioning. Detective Donovan sat across from Derek, his notebook open, pen at the ready. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Wilson," the detective began, "but I need to ask you a few questions." Derek nodded, feeling like an empty shell. "Where were you when it happened?" "In the lobby looking for Melissa. Rachel said she wanted to meet me on the terrace." "And you didn't see the attack?" "No. I heard a scream, glass breaking, and ran over there." The detective took notes. "Mr. Wilson, we've received information about some tension before the wedding. Something related to your wife's past?" Derek told him about Melissa's past being revealed, Victor's role, and how the town reacted to the news. When he mentioned Melissa's conflict with Victor in Nashville, the detective's eyes narrowed. "So Mr. Reeves had a motive?" "I think so. He wanted to ruin our wedding. Melissa said he was vindictive." "What about Mr. Thornton, your friend? What was his relationship with your wife?" Derek hesitated. "Jack is my best friend. He supported us." "Have you noticed anything unusual in his behavior lately? Especially towards your wife?" Images flashed through Derek's mind. Jack's looks at Melissa, his tension in recent days, the strange pauses in conversation. But that couldn't mean it was impossible. "No," Derek said firmly. "Jack couldn't have done it." In another room, Jack sat in front of a female detective, his hands cuffed. "Mr. Thornton, there is the victim's blood on your tuxedo. Mr. Reeves claims he saw you push Mrs. Wilson." "I didn't kill her." Jack leaned forward. "I went out onto the terrace to look for her. She was already there. I was just trying to help. That's why there's blood on me." Several guests noted that you seemed particularly attached to the bride. Is that true? Jack lowered his head. I loved her, but I would never have hurt her. Then why does Mr. Reeves claim otherwise? Because he's the real killer. He stalked Melissa, threatened her. The detective made a note. Do you have any evidence of that? Rachel knows. Melissa told her about the messages, about the past conflict with Victor. In the third room, Victor Reeves sat relaxed, despite the bandage on his shoulder. His lawyer had already arrived and was sitting next to him. I just went out for a smoke, Victor repeated, and saw them arguing. She rejected him, and he lost control. And your shoulder? Detective Donovan asked. Thornton attacked me when I tried to intervene. Mr. Reeves, we've learned about your past conflict with the victim in Nashville. Victor pressed his lips together. A minor misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that left you with a scar? Victor instinctively touched his left temple. That was a long time ago. It has nothing to do with today's events. We have also received information that you sent threatening messages to Mrs. Wilson. Nonsense. You have no evidence. The lawyer leaned toward Victor. My client is not obligated to answer these questions without evidence. Rachel Sullivan was crying in the fourth room. She knew he wouldn't stop. She was afraid he would reveal the whole truth. What truth, Miss Sullivan? About that night at the club. Victor didn't just offer her to become an escort. He tried to force her. She defended herself and hurt him. He swore she would regret it. And you believe he killed her out of revenge? Rachel nodded through her tears. He was obsessed with her. When she rejected him and chose a normal life with Derek, that was the last straw. What about Jack Thornton? Did you know about his feelings for his friend? Rachel froze. Jack loved her, but he would never have hurt her. He wanted her to be happy, even if it wasn't with him. Then why does Mr. Reeves claim he saw Thornton attack her? Because he's lying. He always lies. Outside the hotel, the police were gathering evidence. Forensic experts examined the terrace, photographed bloodstains, and collected fingerprints. A police officer found Melissa's cell phone in her purse. The last message was open on the screen. Meet me on the terrace. We need to talk. I know everything about that night. The message was sent from a number that was not identified as a contact. Technicians were already working to trace the source. Derek's father sat in the hotel lobby, his face gaunt after several hours. Melissa's parents sat nearby, numb with shock and grief. The guests had left, leaving only the immediate family and a few friends waiting for news. Detective Donovan stepped into the lobby, his face expressionless. At this point, we have 3 main suspects, he said. Jack Thornton, Victor Reeves, and, he paused, Derek Wilson. William Wilson jumped up. My son? You're out of your mind. He loved her. Mr. Wilson, in cases like this, the husband is always the first suspect, especially when the wedding took place in a tense atmosphere due to the bride's recently revealed past. That's absurd. Derek would never hurt her. The detective nodded. Perhaps, but we have to consider all possibilities. Derek was temporarily released into his father's custody, but was placed under house arrest. Jack remained in custody as the prime suspect. Victor Reeves was released, but also placed under house arrest. Derek sat in his father's car, staring out the window, but seeing nothing around him. His wedding day had ended in a nightmare he couldn't comprehend. Son, William Wilson began, we'll find the person who did this. I promise. Derek nodded silently. Fragments of conversations, glances, and actions swirled around in his head. Who had sent Melissa the message, luring her onto the terrace? Who could hate her or him so much? And why was Jack there at that moment? By the time they returned to the Wilson home, it was well past midnight. Derek went up to his old room and sat on the bed, still in his wedding suit, now wrinkled and saturated with the smell of the hospital and the police station. On the bedside table was a photograph of him and Melissa during their trip to the mountains last summer. She was smiling, her eyes shining. Now those eyes were gone. Only an empty shell, taken away to the morgue. Detective Donovan returned to the station, where 3 folders lay before him, one for each suspect. Derek Wilson, a husband who learned of his wife's hidden past a few days before the wedding. Possible motive: jealousy, feelings of betrayal, concern for his reputation. Jack Thornton, the groom's best friend, secretly in love with the bride. Possible motive: unrequited love, jealousy, despair. Victor Reeves, a businessman with a secret connection to the bride's past. Possible motives: revenge for past rejection, obsession, malice. Donovan opened the first folder and began to read. He had a long night ahead of him, and somewhere in Briarwood, the killer was preparing for the next day, the first day after the crime that changed the lives of everyone in this small town. The first rays of dawn painted the sky above Briarwood a pale pink. Detective Hank Donovan rubbed his tired eyes and put the case file aside. An improvised investigation board had already appeared on the wall of his office. Photos, notes, lines connecting people and events. In the center was a driver's license photo of Melissa Carter Wilson, a smiling young woman, unaware of her fate. Preliminary autopsy results confirmed that the cause of death was a combination of a blunt object blow to the head and a subsequent knife wound. The killer first stunned the victim and then delivered the fatal blow. The crime was not spontaneous, but well planned. The phone on the table rang. The technicians had finished analyzing the victim's cell phone. The message that lured her to the terrace was sent from a disposable number, the technician reported. But we traced the point of purchase to an electronics store in a neighboring town. They should have surveillance cameras. The second call was a message from an officer studying Victor Reeves's financial records. "Detective, you need to see this. In 2021, Reeves lost a significant amount of money when a nightclub in Nashville closed, the same one where the victim worked." Donovan added this information to the board. The picture was starting to come together. Victor wasn't just a client and investor. He lost money because of the club's closure. Was it a coincidence that the conflict with Melissa happened at that exact time? By noon, Derek Wilson showed up at the station. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, his face gaunt. "I remembered something," he said. Melissa was getting strange messages. The last one came the day before the wedding. "Run while you can, Melody, or everyone will find out the whole truth." "Melody is her nickname at the club?" Donovan clarified. "Yes, but I don't know what the whole truth means." The detective made a note. "Mr. Wilson, what do you know about the financial problems of the club in Nashville?" "Only that it closed around the time Melissa left. She never went into details." An hour after Derek left, Rachel Sullivan arrived at the station. She brought Melissa's laptop. "She asked me to pick it up if anything happened to her." Rachel's voice trembled. "She said there was information on it that could protect or punish someone." Donovan handed the laptop to the technicians, but it took time to unlock the device. Melissa had set up a complex security system. Meanwhile, the officers brought in footage from the electronics store's security cameras. The blurry image showed a man wearing a cap and sunglasses buying a phone. Too many details were hidden, but the height and build could have belonged to either Victor or Jack. That evening, Detective Donovan visited Jack in his holding cell. "Mr. Thornton, I want to give you a chance to tell the truth," he began. "We know about your feelings for Mrs. Wilson. We know about the messages she received. If you cooperate—" "I didn't kill her." Jack's eyes were empty. "I loved her. Yes, I admit that. But I would never have hurt her." "Then why were you on the terrace?" "I saw her receive a message on her phone. She looked upset. I followed her to make sure everything was okay." "And what did you see?" "When I went out onto the terrace, she was already lying on the floor. I rushed to her, trying to help. Then Victor appeared and started yelling that I had attacked her." Donovan studied Jack's face, trying to determine if he was telling the truth. "Did you know about Victor's feelings for Melissa?" "Only that he was obsessed with her, that they had some kind of conflict in Nashville." Late that evening, technicians finally unlocked Melissa's laptop. Detective Donovan was reviewing the contents in his office when he stumbled upon a folder labeled Insurance. It contained documents, photographs, and records, evidence of financial fraud at the Velvet Moon nightclub, fake accounts, money laundering, connections to illegal businesses. Among the documents were photographs of Victor Reeves with well-known crime bosses, lists of investors, including several high-ranking individuals from Briarwood. "Here it is, the whole truth," the detective muttered. The folder also contained messages from Melissa to the club's former owner. "I will not remain silent about what is happening. What you are doing to the girls is illegal." There were also copies of statements to the Nashville police dated 2021. Melissa reported that dancers were being forced into prostitution and that drugs were being slipped into customers' drinks for extortion purposes. One of the accused was Victor Reeves. The club closed after the police raid, and investors lost millions. Victor avoided charges thanks to good lawyers, but his reputation in certain circles was destroyed, and all because of the testimony of a dancer named Melody. At dawn the next day, Donovan received the results of the examination of the suspect's clothing. Traces of blood were found on Victor's shirt cuff, which he had tried to wash off. The DNA matched Melissa's. A search warrant for Victor Reeves's home was issued an hour later. In a hiding place under the bedroom floorboards, officers found the disposable phone from which the last message to Melissa had been sent, and a collection of newspaper clippings about the closure of the Velvet Moon Club. Victor was arrested as he attempted to leave town. A bag of cash and a plane ticket to Mexico were found in his car. Victor remained calm at the police station. "My client will not be making a statement," his lawyer said. But the evidence spoke for itself. Victor had been planning the murder from the moment he learned that Melissa lived in Briarwood. He waited, gathered information, and when he learned of the upcoming wedding, he decided to act. First, he tried to ruin Melissa's reputation and disrupt the wedding. When that didn't work, he chose a more radical path. Jack Thornton was released from custody. Derek met him at the exit of the police station. "I'm sorry," Derek said quietly. "I should have believed you." Jack shook his head. "You couldn't have known. Did you really love her?" Jack stared into the distance for a long time, then nodded. "But I wanted her to be happy, with you." Melissa's funeral was held 3 days later. All of Briarwood came to see her off on her final journey. The people who had been whispering about her past just a week ago were now mourning a life that had ended so early and tragically. Derek was standing by the fresh grave when Rachel approached him. "The detective said you should see this," she said, handing him a printout from Melissa's laptop. It was a letter addressed to him and dated the day before the wedding. "Derek, if you're reading this, then my fears have been realized. I'm sorry I didn't tell you the whole truth earlier. I didn't just dance at that club. I helped shut it down when I found out what was going on there. Victor will never forgive me for this. He lost money, influence, connections. I kept the evidence as insurance, hoping I would never have to use it. Now it's yours. Do with it what you think is right. Know that I loved you with all my heart. You showed me that a new life is possible, that the past does not determine the future. Take care of yourself. Always yours, Melissa." Victor Reeves's trial began 2 months later. The evidence was irrefutable. He lured Melissa onto the terrace, hit her on the head, and then killed her with a knife, staging a fight with Jack. The documents from Melissa's laptop became the basis for new investigations against the former owners of the club. Victor was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Derek sold the house in Briarwood and moved away. Too many memories, too much pain. Jack also left town. They say he went to the West Coast and started a new life. Rachel stayed. Someone had to tell Melissa's real story, not the scandalous version about a stripper, but the truth about a girl who found the courage to stand up to criminals and paid the highest price for it. Briarwood gradually returned to its measured life, but something in the town had changed forever. People became more cautious with their judgments, more attentive to each other's secrets. because now they knew sometimes the price of those secrets could be deadly high. On their wedding anniversary, Derek returned to Briarwood and brought lilies and sprigs of lavender to Melissa's grave. That day changed him forever. It taught him that people are more complicated than they seem, that the past has power over the present, and that love, true love, can exist even in the darkest of circumstances. "I miss you," he whispered. "And I don't blame you. I never did." Detective Donovan sometimes revisited the case of Melissa Carter Wilson. It reminded him why he became a police officer, so that the voices of victims would be heard, so that the truth would prevail, even if it came too late. He often thought about the letter Melissa had left for her husband, about the fear she carried inside her, about the courage with which she met her fate, about a woman whose past haunted her but did not define her. In Briarwood, people no longer talked about the scandalous bride. Now it was a story about Melissa, who tried to protect others and paid for it with her life. A story about secrets that are better revealed than kept, about how the truth, no matter how bitter, will always find its way to light.